Time to grade some rookies from the 2024 NFL draft class. Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, Drake Maye, Bo Nix. All four quarterbacks are playing and starting games right now. How will they grade out? We discuss this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. Keep talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champion, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. And I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listen is greatly appreciated here. Today's show, we're doing a quarterback rookie report, right? Get into these rookies, how these quarterbacks performing. And then second segment, man, we're going to expand this thing a little bit. Talk a couple edge rushers, talk a couple wide receivers, right? Who's really performing from that 2024 NFL draft class. And then we got what? My name is on this one. Coach K's Key Thought. We're going to have this conversation. DP, let's get into these rookies.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Keith, we got to start with the first overall pick, right? Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears. I think last time we did the rookie report, he was about 3-4 weeks into the season. I think we ended up giving him B+ somewhere in there. The last couple games, right? I think we got up to like the Rams game. So against Carolina, 20 of 29, 304, 2 passing touchdowns. Against the Jacksonville Jaguars in a blowout win, 23 of 29, 226, 4 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. And then against the Washington Commanders this past Sunday in the 3-point loss off of the miraculous Hail Mary, he was 10 of 24, 131, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I think over these last 3 to 4 weeks, Keith, I would probably sit around that B+, maybe A- situation. I feel like watching Caleb over these past couple of weeks, this is a guy that's been playing within the system. Like we talked about it last time, when they get the run game going, you get DeAndre Swift rolling, you give him a play action where he doesn't have to do everything himself. And then you limit some of that. I think you limit some of the mistakes you saw at USC when everything was on Caleb Williams for the team to be successful. No, like you got a defense, you can run the ball. Shane Waldron feels like he's starting to find the plays and the concepts that works for this particular offense, right? Getting Roma Dunze going and not just trying to use him the way Washington used him as like that pure X receiver, 50-50 ball, back shoulder fade, one-on-one beater, but they're using him as an in-breaker guy, a guy working the middle of the field, different things like that, getting the ball quickly to DJ Moore, letting him make plays. And of course, when Keenan Allen is integrated into the offense, he's able to make plays as well. Still got to get Cole Kmet going fully for all the weapons to be firing off on all cylinders. But for overall, outside of the game against Washington, the Washington game was pretty ugly for Caleb for the most part until like late, where he was able to kind of lead them down and give them the lead, help them get the lead and everything. Overall, I think he's played good ball.
Yeah, I would give him a B+ too, DP. Just looking at it, I guess in its entirety, right? Like if you watch the Washington game, that game wasn't good. I'll tell you one thing, DP. I know you mentioned Shane Waldron. I'm gonna have to disagree with you just a little bit from that Washington game because he had some calls that I was like, what are we doing? Right? The handoff to the backup center on first and goal. Then you get back down there, DP. You get back down there and you say, you know what? First and goal, I'm gonna throw a slot fade to DJ Moore. What are we doing? Literally, what are we doing? So that was the most frustrating part about that situation. But I agree. Caleb Williams, B+. I'm gonna bring up some other quarterbacks, right? Jayden Daniels, right? I think it's fair to give him a, right? I think he's been playing solid football. He's been playing winning football. And you take the Hail Mary right? Because I know that's what everybody's gonna think. Like, oh man, like that's just not a high completion percentage play, right? I want to look at everything else that he's doing, right? That's in the confines of actual football, and still say he's playing good football, right? You watching him throw over the middle of the field, but the one thing that's translating is that deep ball, right? The deep ball accuracy. He in that Chicago game, he hit Terry McLaurin for a big time play, and that big time play mattered because points was at a minimum, right? The Chicago Bears defense is a very good defense. So I give Jayden Daniels a A, and then I don't know if you want to keep going or if you want to talk about Bo Nix real quick, because he's heating up tremendously and playing well. And listen, the competition is not great, right? They had a rather interesting stretch, right? Las Vegas Raiders, he went 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Chargers, he played solid football, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. The Saints, no touchdowns, no interceptions. And then the Panthers, he did what everybody's doing. He ran up a check and he went 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So, but Bo Nix playing good football, right? Like the last 4 games have been much better. I think we started off with like a C- or a C for him through this stretch, right? If you're doing a quarterly check-in, I would give him a B, like a B. Like I think he's playing good football.
No, I think he is. And I mean, end of the day, you play who's on the schedule. You know what I mean? And playing against like I said, the Panthers is right now. It's that get right game when you see the Panthers on the schedule.
Yeah,
like their defense is bad right now, and it's like, hey, if we're not rolling, we're going to be rolling in this game. You know what I mean? And just the confidence he was able to display against Carolina, I think for him the real test is going to be, hey, once you see Kansas City, the 2 times you see that Spagnuolo defense, and we're going to see, exactly what he looks like. But I think a B is there for him. Even with like going back to Jayden Daniels, what I've appreciated with Jayden, man, like from the stats aspect of it, completion points, completion percentage over expectation, outside of, I think over the past like 4 to 5 weeks, outside of the Browns game, and then the Bears game to an extent, he's been in the plus. Against the Cardinals, he was plus 11.8%. Against the Ravens, plus 7.8%. The Panthers don't really count because he got hurt early in that game. He was negative 2% against the Bears defense. But what you see from him, expected, EPA, like an EPA per dropback, he's been in the plus on that as well for 4 to 5 games down this stretch. He's making plays from the pocket, but then that dangerous ability. And I remember all the talk going into that Ravens game where they were like, man, like this is like Lamar Jackson versus young Lamar Jackson. And I was like, they're 2 different style quarterbacks where both of them are electric runners. And Jayden came in as an older prospect, more nuanced and detailed as a passer than Lamar was coming out of Louisville, because he was a little bit younger, stuff like that. He leaned on the run game early on and has developed into a really good passer now, later in his career on his second contract. But like just watching Jayden operate just fully, just the full operation of what he's bringing, man, I'm loving watching this. And I think, for them is that I know there was like talks like when Brandon Ayuk, the whole trade thing was like, man, let's go get Brandon Ayuk and bring him to Washington. And I understand why. Like you got Terry McLaurin. Luke McCaffrey's been okay as a rookie. He's been all right. You know what I mean? Like you're leaning heavily on Zach Ertz right now while you get Benson not up to speed in this offense and develop him as a pass catching tight end. But I would like to see another receiver, like another legitimate receiver in this offense, because with his ability to push the ball down the field, run the ball, create those advantageous throwing windows down the field, the slot fade, like for anybody that didn't believe that was going to translate, I'm sorry for you, because that has translated perfectly. He was he was the best deep ball thrower in college football last year. That's translated to the NFL, where you look at a guy like Caleb, who has, for most people say he has a better arm and more powerful arm than Jayden. He's a far worse deep ball thrower than Jayden is. Jayden throws with immense touch and timing and ball placement, man. So I think all 3 of those guys, and real quick, Drake Maye, for the flashes we've seen from him, he looks like the guy that you want to build around. He's making, like, I think it was against the Jaguars over in London. He had like a throw up the seam to KJ Osborne, and you got a safety sitting a little bit further out off of the hash. And I was like, that takes arm talent and arm strength to be able to fit that ball there before that safety can close down the inside. He's making plays with his legs when he needs to. And I just think if you're New England, you feel happy with what you have in Drake Maye. I give
Yeah,
him a B, B as well because it's a small sample size, but I give him a B as well.
that's what I was gonna tell Drake. May just come back and take the test, right? Like it's not enough sample size, man. Come back in a couple weeks and take the test with DP. Let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. We have more rookies to grade, right? We're expanding past the quarterbacks. We're gonna talk about a couple wide receivers, a couple defensive prospects, a couple running backs. We're gonna talk about all that and more coming up next.
Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Bilt Rewards comes in. Bilt is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent every single month. Pay your rent and watch the Bilt points roll in. Guys, use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbilt.com/locked on NFL. That's joinbilt.com/locked on NFL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join bilt.com/locked on NFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. Rookie wide receivers, Keith, and of course, got to go to the guy that just had a big time performance against the Miami Dolphins, Marvin Harrison Jr. It was talks for weeks at the beginning of the season. It was a week one. Oh man, what are we doing? He's not explosive enough. Then week two, he has a breakout performance. Then it was very scattered for Marvin Harrison Jr. in this Arizona Cardinals offense. And Drew Petzing, one of the things that he like for me, I felt like it was Cliff Kingsbury all over again with DeAndre Hopkins, where it's like just X receiver, just the same stuff. And it's like, no, like let's mix it up. Let's allow him to be that versatile weapon that he is. And against the Dolphins, man, he had his best game of the season. Truthfully, 7 targets, 6 receptions, 111 yards. And that's been his best performance in the last since like week 2 or 3 and everything. And he had a receiving touchdown. And I believe against like Jalen Ramsey, who's still one of the better corners in the league, right? He was 3 for 3, 63 yards and a touchdown against Ramsey in coverage. You know what I mean? You saw him working the over route. He had a really good route against Cam Smith, the second, third year corner, for the Dolphins, where he ran a crosser, but you saw him stab, once he got inside leverage, stab outside, stab inside, peeked outside, kind of threw him off his linear plane, and then broke back inside, created ample separation. And that connection with him and Kyler, and the one thing that I'll give him credit for too, he's improving in those contested, difficult catches. Because early in the season, for whatever reason, again, it's the physicality in college and the NFL, 2 different things, Keith. So maybe that was something he had to get adjusted to, is how physical DBs play at the catch point in the NFL. He wasn't reeling those passes in. He's bringing them in now. So I think for him, I give Marv a B+, just because a lot of the issues really wasn't solely on him. It was more so usage. And now that they're like, I think they talked about during the broadcast, Kyler pulled Marv into the meeting room and quarterback room and said, hey, what are some things that you want to run, that you like to do? Let's get you comfortable and we can work. And they figured that out against the Miami Dolphins. They didn't have an answer for him, man. So he's been playing well. I mean, he's, given whenever he gets the right targets.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, right? And it's been kind of sporadic, but the Cardinals have been kind of sporadic, right? And they've kind of been up and down. And it's like for 2 weeks you feel like, hey, this is a good football team. Then the next 2 weeks you feel like, what is going on, right? So I
now
just think
they're like the leaders in the NFC West, which no one saw coming.
Yeah, right. They're right there at the top with everybody else. So I'm gonna go to LSU wide receiver DP, and probably not the one you think. I'm gonna go with Brian Thomas. Because I think if you told people, I believe that he's outpacing Marvin Harrison Jr. as far as yardage, right? And we just talked about consistency. And I think that's what Brian Thomas Jr. has been for Jacksonville. There's only been one game, right, where he's went over 100 yards, but he's been consistent in the sense of the fact of, hey, I'm gonna catch around 4 to 5 passes and give you 70, 80 yards, right? And even more than that, right? Like half of the games he has a touchdown. It's not like he has 5 touchdowns on a season, and you'll see sometimes where it'll be one game where a guy has 3 touchdowns. And for him, it's been I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 8 games he's caught a receiving touchdown. So you're just talking about being consistent, right? And you're drafting this guy to be, maybe he has a shot at being wide receiver 1 at some point, right? But at least a complimentary piece as a rookie while he still develops. He's showing some consistency, right? And he's making, like, you watch the touchdown catches and just the catches period, like it appears that his IQ is picking up, right? Like just the things you've seen from Malik Neighbors as far as like the toe tap, seeing being out of bounds and the body control, things like that. Brian is like elevating, and he's taking steps forward, I think, which is really a good thing. And I can't remember if it's Caldwell is still their wide receiver coach, but whoever the wide receiver coach is for Jacksonville, I think he's doing a good job with him, because it feels like he's kind of hit the ground running as a rookie. And I mean, and let's be honest, like he was kind of the number 2 man at LSU, right behind Malik Neighbors. And I think he's filling that role really well, just jumping in and being that consistent guy to kind of offset some different things. And like, hey, if you put the number 2 or number 3 corner on me, I'm going to beat him.
No, and they're using him, Keith, to his skill set, right? Like since when you look at his deep target percentage, right? His deep target rate, that's 20 plus yards down the field. Texans, he was at 33.3. Colts, week 5, 25% of his passes were deep passes. Against the Bears, it was 16.7. Against the Patriots, 20%. Against the Packers, it was 25%. They understand what he is right now, and he's that big playmaker. And with their run game, like with Tank Bigsby getting more stabilized, right? Then you get the play action pass. You get some of the dink and dunk stuff, which allowing Trevor to get into a rhythm. Then you take those deep shots, those money plays to a Brian Thomas Jr. Because when you're 6'4", running 4.33 or whatever he ran, sub 4.4 in the 40, with that type of speed, if I can get one-on-one, I want to take that. I get inside my plus 45 to midfield, and it's 1st and 10 after a nice play, I'm taking that deep shot, right? Also, it backs the defense off, which gives you lighter boxes to run into and run against. So I think what he's been able to do, I love seeing it. Malik Neighbors, like he up until week 4, he was an A, man. He was killing it, right? And then he got concussed. So he missed week 5 and 6. He returned in week 7 against the Eagles. Wasn't great, 8 targets, 4 receptions, 41 yards receiving. Bounced back with a solid performance on Monday night. 13 got back to those double-digit targets, Keith. 13 targets, 7 receptions, 71 yards. And he himself is averaging around at minimum 10 to 11 yards per target. So he's working down the field. They're getting them past the sticks, things of that nature. And it's not the same output. It's not the 130 yards that we saw early in the season, but I expect him to still be around 10 to 12 targets a game and around roughly 70 yards per game, receiving, because at the end of the day, Daniel Jones is going to look for him and he's going to give him the football. I mean, you better, Daniel is not looking great for you right now. You better just do whatever you can to get Malik Neighbors the ball. He's your playmaker. I probably would give Malik Neighbors right now a solid, B, just because of the fact of coming off the concussion, where you miss a couple weeks, had to take a game to get back regulated, get back going. But like I said, against the Steelers, he still looked good to me. He still looked like a high-end playmaker. I think Cam Newton talked about the comment he made after, I think it was, which game? Was it the Eagles game? It was the Eagles game. He was like, just check the tape. I'm open. And Cam was like, I loved it. Throw him the ball. Give him the ball. I'm going into the offense coordinator's office. Hey, let's get this Neighbors guy the ball as much as possible. And again, I mean, quarterback is what it is. We knew what you were walking into when you got drafted to the New York Giants. And hopefully through maybe the 2025 NFL draft, we can get you a new one.
Yep. Well, DP, Cam Newton probably appreciated that, right? Because outside of Steve Smith, they gave my guy very little to work with down
very
there.
bare cupboard in Carolina.
Yeah, so he was probably like, man, I would take one of these guys every day of the week, right? I want wide receivers that want the football. Oh, but DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing. And coming up next is Coach K's Key Thought. We're going to get into some conversation coming up next.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get that urge or a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page you placed your bets. Just go to and just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Guys, I'm telling you now, if you win with your first $5 bet, you'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And guys, we got to get into Coach K's key thought. So, Coach K, what's the key thought of the day?
DP, and the Locked On family, right? The key thought for the day. Obviously we are deep into October, almost in basically November, right? And I'm sitting here looking at this offensive tackle class, DP, and I think the key thought is that Coach K is concerned. I'm concerned at the very top of it, right? And not knocking it, saying that it's not a good class, but I think when we're used to having, and I think since I've been in this space, right, there's been one or two elite guys at the very top, right, that you feel really comfortable about. I think right now there's a lot of offensive tackles, but should they play guard or like stretch offensive tackles, meaning that they're probably best at guard, but they play some offensive tackle. Then all of them, if you watch the film, DP, I think you can go through Joe Oat last year and you can say, man, he pretty much pitched a shutout. You can go through Olu Fushanu and you're like, man, this guy pretty much pitched a shutout. And you've seen where if they did lose, it was more of a mental thing, right? I think right now we're looking at guys like, hey, are they physically limited? You know what I'm saying, with how they're losing, and the that part you can't really fix, right? Like if a guy is his measurables is tapped out, like you can't make them longer, right? If a guy doesn't get the proper depth because he doesn't have the foot quickness and things like that, like you can't necessarily fix that all the way, right? So I'm looking at this class and I'm just saying that I don't know if the top is as blue chip as we're used to in this offensive tackle class, DP, because I think everybody up until this point has multiple reps of them losing to this point, right? Maybe outside of one or two guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Because you think about the New England Patriots, we talked about Drake Maye earlier in the show, and that's one of their key needs is an offensive tackle. And if they're right now, like I think they're slated to be like a top 5 pick. If you're in the top 5 and you're a New England Patriots, you still want to draft one of these tackles, but you're not drafting them in the top 10 or top 5. You probably want to say, hey, quarterback needy team that's at 8 or 9 or 10, let's trade back, get some draft capital, then take that guy. So, and at worst, if he doesn't pan out at tackle, you can kick him down at guard, and then you can say, okay, well, what's the next year's class? Like we're going to have more draft capital to be able to be aggressive and make the moves that we need to make. And again, I think just this tackle class is going to put a heavy emphasis on who's available in free agency, where like guys could get a nice 1 to 2 year deal as a free agent tackle, because teams right now don't know who's a day one starter at this in this tackle class. And I get it, right? Like it's hard when you look at guys and you say, man, like I love the physicality and the aggressiveness and the temperament of a Will Campbell, but I got arm length concerns, right? I wonder, does he have the arm length to really stay at his spot, hit his landmarks, and keep guys away from his chest plate, right? Or the Emory Jones, like, is he technically refined enough to even start as a rookie? Or do we need to redshirt him a year and let him just develop, by watching and working with the veteran tackles, things of that nature? I think what we talked about this in the preseason, Mekhi Becton playing guard for the Philadelphia Eagles. If he hits the free agency, we know he could play tackle. It's just the fact that he kept getting hurt. So maybe a team that needs a tackle, if you're the New England Patriots and he hits free agency, you say, forget, we love that you played guard last year and you look good doing it. We need you to play left tackle, big dog. You know what I mean? And you just go and get one of these guys that say, hey, maybe you're a 1 to 2 year. Truthfully, it's like a quarterback situation, right? Like you find that veteran that could be the bridge to your young player that eventually could step in when you feel like he's actually ready and prepared. It's going to be very interesting, Keith, to see, because I feel like it's a couple teams that need to improve their pass protection. And if you're drafting high and you're like, man, I really need to improve pass protection, yeah, you might want to move back and you know what I mean, and just see what you can get there, because there is, I don't know if there's an Amarius Mims. The only guy, well, my guy Ariante Ursa reminds me a little bit of Amarius Mims in terms of being that mid-first round, back in the first round type of guy. But he still got a lot of ball left to play to really prove himself against those rushers in the Big Ten. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how this offensive tackle class plays out, because I think our guy Kieran Amagadeji got some run on Sunday night against the Commanders when Braxton Jones went down. I was like, oh, Kieran's in the game. You know what I mean? So it was like, and he was like, what, a second, third round pick, a day 2 pick in this previous class. So anything's possible, but right now it just does not look great for the 2025 offensive tackle class.
Yeah, I'll say this, and this is probably the best way to phrase it, and this is going to be my key thought, is that you could potentially get the same value picking an offensive tackle at pick 5 that you can get at pick 25. Right. And I think, or even pick 35. Right. And that's going to be the thing, is that those teams that need an offensive tackle, I think about the New England Patriots. This is a pull a Bill Belichick, right? Trade down twice, right? Trade down the 10, see who's there, right? See who's there, get some more draft capital, and then trade down again. And I think if you tell people like, hey, you walked away with a potential Calvin Banks at 2025, and then I walked away with Emory Jones at 32 or 38, people will say, pretty solid haul, right? But just to, and I think that's probably the route to go, or like you say, even your guy Ariante Ursa at some point. So I think that's overall DP. That's my overall thing, is that you could potentially get the same value at pick 5 that you could get at pick 25. And that's what I'm seeing thus far. And with this draft class, I'm not going to force anything, DP. Yeah. I'm going to let it be what it's going to be. I can't make guys into what they aren't, right? And that's where you start getting in trouble, and that's where the misses start piling up, and that's where people start getting in trouble. So DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. Listen, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson, and you can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us, because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today, and everyday shot for being our everydayers. On tomorrow's show, we're going to get into prospect spotlight on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.